This is John McClain. This is Paul Kuharsky from ESPN.com, Jay White Sports. Welcome to the Two-Tone Crew right here on TitansReport.com.
Your source for Titans and pro football talk. This is the Two-Tone Crew on TitansReport.com.
Hello, Titans fans. This is John Boy here. Welcome to the Two-Tone Crew, the official podcast of TitansReport.com. This is episode 88, and unfortunately, we're here to talk about yet another Titans loss. Joining me tonight, Josh. Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, glad to be back, man. Still the
Jamal. Welcome back, my friend.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, yeah. Loss. I won't say it's good to be back like Josh said, but I am back.
No, we're trying a different little audio setup tonight, so I think I just didn't give Josh enough time to switch back over.
Really?
Josh, there you are, my friend.
I think I was there. I think I was there. I don't know what happened, but it's good to be back.
It is good to be back. Unfortunately, we are here to talk about the Titans' 21-7 defeat at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. Great first quarter, guys. Great first quarter. Titans came out, put together a great drive. Mettenberger made some nice throws. The defense was playing well. Titans got out to an early lead, and it looked like we were well on our way to a solid game. Unfortunately, it really should have been 14-0.
Yeah.
But Sean Green had a fumble going into the end zone. I still think he got in. I just don't think they had an angle to show it.
Yeah.
But sadly, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought live. I mean, it looked like he got in, but the same thing. You can't fault them for turning it over. You would hope that they would kind of err on the side of it getting in and then let it be overturned, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was actually the first drive, right? So they came out, they put together some great plays to get down there, and then that just, of course, sucked the life out of the team. Except it didn't. They came right back down, scored a touchdown. But, in a game that ended up being 21-7, a 14-0 lead could have went a long way. And
look, the defense played well.
They did.
And I think that game would have been very different if it was 14-0 and 7 going into halftime. I think it would have been a different game.
Yeah, just a lot of things started going in the Ravens' favor. Kind of near the end of the second quarter, really. Delaney Walker went down with a concussion. That actually, the play when he went down was a huge play because they at first ruled it a catch and a fumble recovered by Kendall Wright for the Titans. But then no flag was thrown. Harbaugh actually challenged it, and he was bobbling slightly, and they ruled it incomplete, which I guess technically by the rules that wasn't a catch. But, man, it is – I find myself watching more and more games where I'm actually legitimately confused as to what it isn't anymore because, he clearly had the ball and was in possession of it, took steps. Maybe it was moving around in his arms, but very unfortunate play. Instead of a big first down, the Titans actually had to punt, and as we know, they didn't score for the rest of the game.
Legal hit? What do you think?
In today's NFL, I'm surprised they didn't throw a flag on it. As I watch it in slow motion, I think it's one of those things where, let's say it was a reviewable play, which obviously those sorts of things aren't. Let's say it was a reviewable play. There's no way that they would have overturned whatever the call on the field was. Like, it was pretty close either way. But I'm still surprised. In today's NFL, come on. And then the penalty that they throw on Washington, he bumps a guy's helmet with his helmet. Give me a freaking break.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, that was after the play, wasn't it?
Yeah, which in my opinion, either just don't do anything or earn the penalty.
That's exactly what if you're going to get that penalty, you might as well Yeah, you might as well earn it. You might as well go up to the guy and just punch him. Because I mean, I don't know if it was obviously it was a legal hit. I mean, did the guy get fined? I don't know. Did the guy get fined?
I have not heard that he's gotten fined, and I think if he does get fined, we will hear plenty about it. So
yeah.
And by the way, I still look at that, and in my mind, that's a catch.
I think so too, man.
I don't buy that it's not a catch. It just there's so many things with football right now where things aren't considered a catch. I mean, he's got it cradle in his hands. It first bounces off a little bit, and he catches it again, and he's like, it's moving, but so are his hands. You know, I think it's
2 feet
stupid.
in, and he's actually turning upfield too.
I just think it's stupid that sort of thing isn't called a catch. And then I'm surprised it wasn't called a penalty. And then I'm kind of surprised they threw the penalty on Washington. I mean, you can't be doing stupid stuff unless you really want to earn it. But that wasn't much of anything. Like, that sort of headbutting, like gentle headbutting, goes on all the time in the NFL. It definitely turned the tide of the game, because not only was it, instead of a big conversion and a nice catch, it turned into a 15-yard penalty and changed the field position for the game. Plus, we lost Delaney Walker.
Yep.
Yeah, who missed the day still. With that concussion, yeah.
Yeah. And so, by the way, I was looking at the stats afterwards, because I think everyone knows Delaney Walker came into this game. He was our leading receiver, right? And we have a bunch of people we've basically signed off the street at tight end outside of him because of injuries to Craig Stevens and Taylor Thompson. So clearly it would affect the offense. But just going back and looking at, statistically, what did we do before the injury and after the injury? Before the injury, Mettenberger was 11 of 16, 116 yards and a touchdown. After the injury, he was 5 of 10, 63 yards and an interception. The running game before the injury was 14 rushes, 48 yards, so a 3.4 average, which isn't great, but it's certainly better than the 2.6 yard average they had after the injury. And also 3 of the 5 sacks happened after that injury as well. So, I mean, tale of two halves, and so the second half was after the injury. You kind of expect that, but just looking at it, it's pretty stark, the differences.
And Josh, I'm pretty sure I saw you either tweeting about this or commenting on it over on Titans Report, but it just seemed like every single break, be it bounce of the ball or penalty or judgment call, everything went the Ravens' way this game, and ultimately paved the way for them to get the win.
Yeah, you don't want to blame the refs. You never want to do that, right? It seems like such a cop-out. But, I mean, it's just, man, everything went the Ravens' way. And sure, I guess that some of that might be home field advantage. I don't know, but I mean, we're still starting our drives deep in our own territory, and then having penalties down there. Like for instance, on that Justin Hunter penalty, it looks like we have gotten out of our own end zone and got that and go to Justin Hunter, and of course we get the call for offensive pass interference.
I know. I was so excited. It looked like he'd made a great catch, and then suddenly.
To be honest, I think if you asked the coach, would you want him to do that same exact thing next game? They'd say yes, because those are the types of plays they want him to go and make, and it's the type of thing I'm again, in today's NFL, they're going to call that against the offense. I guess I don't see it. I just don't, and I think between that, the Delaney Walker play, the couple of things that happened on that play.
The Washington headbutt.
Yeah, the Washington headbutt, the actual catch, the non-penalty on the defense. So those 3 things from that play. Then the offensive pass interference and the non-touchdown on the first drive. Those 3 things really changed a lot about this game. And what's interesting is I think because we've been losing a lot, everybody was really down on this game and, we lost 21-7. We got our butts kicked. Not really.
No.
Like we did not get our butts kicked this game. The second half, our offense didn't do much. Their offense was not doing much most of the game.
Nope.
I mean, we had a pretty good defensive game. And if you look at some of those big things that could have gone either way and all of them happened to go against us, those could have changed the game quite a lot. So I'm not too disappointed with our performance overall versus Baltimore, there are a lot of like things that we need to get right. But just like a heads up versus Baltimore, I don't think we lost by that much.
How weird was the whole offensive line? Because the first half they looked dominant. I mean, the first quarter, they looked dominant. Everybody was just like, the announcers were talking about it. Folks on Twitter were tweeting about it. My goodness, what's with this Titans offensive line? Because that was one of the, going in, I think that was an area many expected the Ravens to exploit the Titans. And that first quarter, they just held up very well. Mettenberger had a lot of time. They were blocking fairly decent on the running game. But then from the second quarter on, I mean, he was under a lot of pressure, and it just wasn't the same. That all those predictions came true eventually. So
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, but some of that's on him, and some of that's on at times the receivers not getting open, although that doesn't seem to be the case in this game as much. But going back to the blocking aspect, I mean, it was really good seeing Lewan go against Suggs, and there was a play where he just killed him. I can't remember when it was. I think it was the first quarter, and he just destroyed Suggs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then like the alternate play of that is one of the sacks was Lewan getting blown up by Suggs, I think.
Yeah.
But overall, much of that, us looking good on the first drive or two, plus especially the offensive line looking good early on, do you think has to do with sort of the scripted plays that are practiced multiple times, and they know exactly what they want to do, and they're really organized that way, and then you get into the rest of the game, and they don't look quite as good? Like, how much of it is organization, if that makes sense? I don't know.
I'm not sure either. Whatever it was working in the first quarter.
It was working. And won so far. Extremely happy with that.
Oh, yeah. That's so far looking just like an excellent, excellent pick. And he's really started to get some recognition around the league as well. And I think even Suggs spoke pretty highly of him after the game. So that's one positive. And here's something that not a lot of people have been talking about. We were really hard on Levitre earlier in the year. Yeah, and I wonder if it's... I've never played offensive line throughout any of my career in football, which consisted of about 1 year when I was... But I have no idea how offensive line schemes work, but it just seems that he's been playing a lot better with Lewan next to him. And I don't know if... I don't want to put a knock on Roos because he has been great for us for so many years. It may be nothing to do with that at all. But part of me wonders if he doesn't somehow have better chemistry with Lewan, or if Lewan's style of play suits Levitre better. Or maybe he's just been healthy because he's been... I mean, he was just downright awful at times earlier in the year. Josh, you said you were at a game. You watched him every couple of plays, and he was just getting blown up all the time. But he's improved. And now it seems to be the other side continuing to struggle. But I have no idea really what's going on there with Levitre.
Yeah, I was going to point out the same thing, which is it's not to say that he's necessarily playing great, and nobody needs to worry about Levitre anymore. Awesome,
right.
But you haven't noticed the glaring plays where he's getting blown up, and you're like, what the heck is going on? Those haven't been as frequent recently, and I think it makes me wonder, is some of it him getting more comfortable in this system where I know that at least some of the things I've read, they're a little bit more on an island with the way that the offensive line plays this year versus previous years. Is he maybe getting healthier? Or is it maybe, that switch to Lewan? I don't know. Either way, it's a positive.
Right. It's just we still have the right side, which unfortunately continues to struggle. Warmack and Michael Orr. And again, like Josh was saying, we're going to talk a lot about Mettenberger's performance because that's really when you've got a 2-7 team. What else is there to look for except the future? And right now, he's the guy who we are hoping can become the future at quarterback. So some of those sacks, it was definitely on him holding the ball too long. And I'm sort of in that camp where with Ken Wisenhunt right now, who's saying, that's something that's easily correctable and something that they're going to work on. So far, Mettenberger started, 2 games, regular season games. That's all we've seen him so far.
Yep.
And I've yet to see anything that gives me just great cause for concern that he's never going to be able to put it together. And I kind of get the sense that there's a lot of folks, who are just not writing him off already, but just, I guess they were expecting him just to come right in and be great immediately. But what I'm saying is nothing I've seen so far has given me extreme cause for concern. In fact, I've seen a lot of positives, and the negatives that I do continue to see, I really do think they can correct them if they just keep working at it, like getting rid of the ball on time and knowing when to dump it off short. That's something we talked about in his first game, how he actually did that a lot. And maybe this game he held on to it a little bit too much and didn't find that outlet guy as quick. So,
yeah, the sack thing is interesting because there were multiple of the sacks where he was holding the ball and it was just like, oh, get rid of it, and then he gets sacked. It's like even laymen can tell, like, that was a problem where you held it too long. But overall, statistically, it's not a case where he's holding the ball frequently, right? It's not like he's holding the ball for 5 seconds or whatever else. His sacks are coming in at, like, I think I saw the article from Paul Kuharski at ESPN. It was like 2.8 seconds on average. It's not like he was holding it for like 6 seconds and then getting sacked. It's that he was holding it beyond where he should have gotten rid of it based on how the play unfolded. So maybe there was a guy he could have hit early, and then maybe as the pocket collapsed, he should have gone to a point where he threw it away. But we don't have plays where he's, I've seen quarterbacks where they're holding it for like 10 seconds. It seems like part of that's the offensive line gives them a lot of protection and they're scrambling around and moving around, and that's something he's not doing. That wasn't the case, but it was like individually, context-wise, those plays he probably should have gotten rid of it a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
As Gunnels kind of pointed out, Gunnels had an article today, and he kind of showed that on those plays, it seemed like he had, in some cases a short outlet, but in some other cases he actually had, some guys running pretty deep, open, and he failed to recognize that and to get it to him. And like you said, a lot of quarterbacks hold the ball for a long time. We're playing Ben Roethlisberger this weekend, who Monday who probably holds the ball longer than anybody else in the league. But he has a little bit of mobility as well.
Yeah, he gets away.
And he's also just so strong that there's so many times you watch a guy like Ben Roethlisberger and guys get to him, and maybe it's the fact that he's moving off his spot, which this game, like, it's very obvious if you go back and watch. Zach did not move around a whole lot.
No.
And if he had, taken the step left or right and some of those things, maybe the pressure when it gets to him isn't so full force. And I think that's some of the things that Ben Roethlisberger does, right? When he's negotiating the pocket, that way when he gets hit, it's not a guy just getting to lay into him. It's a shot that isn't quite as direct, and then he can absorb it because he's just big and strong, and that benefits him. But yeah, some quarterbacks are known for holding the ball, but they're giving you some positives along with a couple of extra sacks.
Well, I'd say, you know what, as poorly, I don't want to say as poorly, but the way that Mettenberger played, a lot of people say he had a bad game. Same stats. They're both 16 and 27. Mettenberger had 179. Flacco had 169. What did Flacco have? He had 4 sets. We were rushed for 112 yards on 20 carries.
Yep.
Meanwhile, like you said, I think we said we're 3.8 yards a carry.
3.4 early in the game, and then as the game deteriorated, 2.6 yards per carry. So
around 3 yards a carry. That's not getting it done. That's not getting it done.
No, and I think I listen to Greg Cosell on the Midday 180 every week because I think that he does a really good job, and I respect his opinion.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up too.
And he's one of the people who identified Zach Mettenberger early on as a guy who he thought could be challenging Jake, and he saw a lot of positives. And one of the things, so a couple things that he said was, early in the game, he felt like schematically some of the things the Titans were doing were trying to protect the offensive line, which is interesting. And then he said that Zach Mettenberger, this is going to be a pretty rough paraphrasing, but he said, Zach Mettenberger, I still think he can be a very good quarterback. He's going to make a lot of great throws in this league, but he's the type of quarterback who you're going to need to have a strong running game for.
Yeah.
And I think what you've seen this year, I mean, just go back and look at it. Our running game is not strong. And Ken Wisenhunt talked after the game. When asked about it, he said, our offensive line struggled because people were asking him about Bishop Sankey, and he said, our offensive line struggled to produce opportunities as the game wore on. And so he was almost even saying it's not necessarily on the running backs. It was the offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cassell also talked about, he said Zach threw some really nice far hash, deep comeback throws early. He said they were really strong. Paul Koharski tweeted out a lot of this, or at least kind of a brief Cliff Notes version. But the one that I thought was interesting, Josh, you were talking about how he didn't really move a whole lot. We haven't seen him move much at all. And he said something to the effect of that Met's normally oblivious to people around him and very firm standing. But he also went on to say that he can move. He just hasn't showed it yet for whatever reason. So
yeah.
I think, through 2 games, this guy is still rookie. I think things are probably still moving so fast for him. Everybody talks about the speed of the NFL game and how it just takes, some guys a whole year just to get used to the speed of the game in these areas as we go on, because he's clearly shown, like we mentioned earlier, he can make some excellent throws, and he does have a good pocket awareness, but sometimes he just doesn't navigate it very well, it seems. Anything else on Mettenberger, guys?
I think what I want to say on Mettenberger is sort of similar to last week. It's a bit of an incomplete if you're assessing him. And part of it is that he's only had 2 games, and he is a rookie, right? But there were a lot of good things that he did. And when you're looking at young guys and rookies, those good things tend to get a lot of focus. I think there were some things that if he doesn't change it over time, those concerns or those bad things he's highlighting. And I think some of it had to do with not moving off his spot. Although it was interesting when they asked Ken Wisenhunt about that, he said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something along the lines of, we are trying to move the spot with how many, he might take a 7-step drop or a 9-step drop or whatever it is. We try to change that up, and that moves the spot that defenders are trying to get to. And so we can schematically and play calling wise move that spot a little bit. But I think his movement in the pocket needs to improve over time, and his recognition, like some of the sacks he took, it wasn't even just that he should have thrown it away. It was like where we were at on the field, he really needed to get rid of it. Safety at one point because he didn't get rid of it. And you have to kind of know those situational things. But those are the things, then I start looking at it and saying, well, he's a rookie, And so, like, his negatives, the reason it's an incomplete is because I see some negatives, but those are negatives that I kind of almost want to, for a young quarterback, question whether or not those will just naturally go away.
Yep. And, just kind of what the opposite of you were just saying, for as many of those areas where it's just not good to take a sack, there are also times when it is good to take a sack. And it's even better to take a sack than to force a throw into terrible coverage and end up having an interception. So I think that's underrated. If you can throw it away, yeah, absolutely throw it away. But there are times in a game when taking a sack is not the worst thing in the world. And protect the ball, live to fight another day. Don't throw an interception. So there's just a lot that goes into it. That in the heat of the moment, you don't always think about all those other situations and reasons for things that could be there.
Here's what matters. Here's what right now the game is moving too fast for Mettenberger at times. I think we see that. He takes a little bit of time to process the play sometimes and to throw the ball. In the preseason, we saw he didn't do that as much, but he was going against a different level of talent. But in that first quarter, those first 2 drives, he not only made the right decisions, but he delivered that ball as well as anyone in the league could deliver that ball. I mean, some of those passes were just insane passes that most guys wouldn't even attempt, and he made them perfectly. And that's the kind of thing that you think, wow, if he can kind of just get used to this game, get used to this level, and yeah, he's not going to play at that level. I don't think that's he was basically playing at like Manning Brady level there for about 2 drives. He's not going to do that. But if he can, he showed that he has the skills. He shows that he has the arms. He just needs to kind of just study, let the game slow down, and I guess we could address what was asked today. I mean, have we seen enough out of Mettenberger after 2 games for the season ended today? That was asked on the message board to say he's the guy. No, you haven't. But you see enough of the skills that make you think he definitely could be the guy.
He could, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where, with young guys, you almost want to focus on the positives. And I've seen some awesome positives. And in fact, I think if you go back and look at it, what did he pass for? Something like 179 yards?
Yep.
Look at the plays that were really close to happening. The offensive pass interference that got called back, the Delaney Walker pass. Just those 2 alone would have added quite a bit to his numbers. And I think it would have
60 right there, probably.
Well, and what it would have done was we had so many drives. There were a bunch of drives in a row where I think we even like ended with negative yardage, but like a lot of 3 and outs. Those would have broken those drives up, right? And I think that would have mattered. And then probably the thing that I actually would say is the biggest concern that I had were the 2 plays, the one to Kendall Wright where he overthrew him, led him a little bit too much, and the other one to, I think it was the tight end Kaufman, where it was behind him. Those were plays that if he was just accurate with the ball, and that's just, maybe it's because the last quarterback I ended up deciding was just not accurate regularly. Accuracy matters to me at this point. Like, it's high on my list. And those 2 plays, it was like, oh, because if we would have made those plays, that could have changed the dynamic of the game as well. I mean, a lot of the reason this game got away from us was because it was consecutive drives over and over and over that were just quick and brutal, took the wind out of our sails, got that crowd into it, and then the defense over time wore down and gave up a couple of opportunities.
Not to mention the fantastic special teams play we had in the second half.
Especially if you ignore the penalties, right?
Yeah.
Something has to be done with special teams and penalties. It was pretty absurd, this game. I mean, bring in some refs to watch special teams. Ignore the offensive line and just get that right.
Yeah, I mean, they actually did improve on the offensive line, I feel like. We had 9 total penalties for 67 yards. I wish I had the exact numbers for how many were on special teams, but I'm pretty sure of them were. And then we know about the Washington headbutt penalty as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if we had 9 penalties, 11 of them were on special teams.
Exactly. Yeah, defensively, I mean, I continue to feel like it's so hard to rate this defense when the offense just consistently put them in such bad positions. Only got 1 sack, didn't get any turnovers this game, but still, I mean, when you only give up 21 points, it was just more of a slow burn than it was a sudden surge of anything. They kind of just whittled them down. And then Wembley was in position to stop Forsett on the touchdown and just didn't look too hot on that one.
No, which is interesting because, and this is basically all coming from that Greg Cosell interview, Wembley has said they practiced that play. He anticipated that play. He knew what was coming. And he just got
spot.
Yep, and he just got beat to the edge.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, but isn't he the guy who like succeeded at Ninja Warrior because he's a crazy athlete? How does he get beat to the edge? But
right.
Especially when he knows it's coming. I mean, that's how close some of these things were.
And that's another time when you can point to the coaching and say, well, they were prepared. You know, the coaches did their job in that situation. Because, I mean, as you can imagine, 2-7 team, it's only natural for there to be a little bit of discussion about the job that the head coach is doing. And one thing that we actually didn't get a chance to talk about last week, I know we wanted to keep it a relatively quick show tonight, but I did want to briefly mention that Tommy Smith interview from last week, because I thought that was just a fascinating, eye-opening, very candid, and as a fan, frankly, just made me feel very positive about the long-term outlook of the organization. He may be going behind the scenes and doing completely different than what he's saying, but everything he's saying, I really like what I'm hearing. I think he has realistic expectations. He's not expecting Super Bowl this year. I think he said he hopes they could be in the 2017 Super Bowl, so for the 2016 season, I assume. And he talked a lot about how his biggest disappointment for him was the offensive line.
Yep.
Which, thank goodness that he's not sugarcoating it. I think he had some quote to the effect of, he basically said, I don't care where they were drafted or how much we're paying them, and everybody immediately, you're going to jump to Warmack and Levitri because they're two high-paid guys and one very early pick. And he's saying, whatever they're paid, wherever they were drafted, doesn't matter. We've got to correct it.
Yep.
And it's just so comforting to see some, just a very level-headed guy, it seems, in every interview you hear with him. And as a fan, I mean, for me, it does make me feel somewhat positive about the ultimate future of the team.
I like listening to him talk. In the end, what he says doesn't matter so much. I think that as long as he's letting the decision makers make the decisions, and he's going to try to provide stability, and it sounds like that's what he's going to do. That was the biggest thing I took away from it, was just categoric, Whisenhunt's safe, Webster's safe, we're going to build this right. That's the most important thing. I like hearing when he talks like, oh, the offensive line, yeah. But it's almost like, I remember last year they did some focus groups, and then there were so many things actions they took after those focus groups that it was almost like they just took things right out of the focus group and said, this is how we're going to operate the franchise. And it's almost like when I hear him talk, it's almost like he knows exactly what fans are talking about, and so he acknowledges them, which is nice to hear, but less meaningful.
Right.
I don't know. That was my take on his presentation.
Yeah, he kind of had a little tour. I think he had an interview in the Tennessean, and then he had a radio interview. So he must just get the sense that he needs to do those from time to time as the morale continues to dip and wane.
And it was bye week, almost mid-season. I mean, it's kind of good timing for it. And then, yeah. One of the other interesting things from that, by the way, and I don't remember the frequency, but he talks to Whisenhunt and Webster pretty regularly, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, I believe you say he talks to Whisenhunt once a week and Webster like 2 or 3 times, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Pretty frequent, yeah.
Webster he talks to more. That's all I remembered. And both of them, to any fan out there who may have wondered, they're both safe. They're not going anywhere, according to Tommy. And we've talked a lot on Titans Report. I wrote an article many months ago about Rustin Webster because there's this common thread that just is continuing throughout this season and through the past couple of seasons, and that is just sort of an evaluation on his job. And however you feel, it's clear that Tommy Smith is on the side of that it wasn't Webster's fault. Even though Webster was with the team during the Reinfeldt years, I thought Smith made it very clear that he attributes that largely to the previous GM, wrong or right, or that's how he feels about it, is what it seems like. So that buys Webster at least, as I wrote in that article, I mean, he's tied to Whisenhunt. If Wiz succeeds, then Webster's going to be around for a while, and if Wiz fails, then that's probably going to be the end of Webster, because that was as GM, that was, his first big sole decision that was his own under new ownership as he went out and hired him.
And he went out and recruited him for sure. I mean, that was very much a Webster thing. And I still think that your article that you wrote was really interesting because there's so much where how much of even recent draft picks or recent free agent signings that haven't turned the corner yet, how much of those is Webster really to blame? How much is the previous coaching staff maybe to blame instead that he was working with? Or maybe even just like bad luck, bad timing, right? So it's really interesting. The most unfortunate thing that this season has presented so far is just that, like, all of the draft picks that we have put into this offense recently, the offense is still putrid. And the defense, you'd love to be able to invest in it, but then, like, you look at them, and it's like, well, the defense is not the biggest problem right now. And that's really unfortunate. It'd be nice, instead, to invest in the offense for a couple of years, and then those players develop, and then you can invest in the defense, and, hey, look, we got a complete team. Instead, I mean, at this point, you're probably needing to invest in that offense again. Last year, we talked about how bad that offense was. Quite a bit. And we played, I think in the first 10 games, we played some of the best defenses in the league. And that was one of our excuses for why the offense wasn't doing better. I think after 9 games last year, the offense had 200 points. This year, we're at 144.
Oh, my.
Like, not even close to last year's offense. And last year, we felt was unacceptable.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, it seems like the consensus, we're obviously at 2-7. A lot of minds are turning toward the draft and which direction the team will go. And I can't believe we're already at that point, but we are.
I'm not. I refuse.
But you're right. It's the inclination is, we need that pass rusher. But then you're like, wait a second. The defense actually has been kind of decent, and the offense has just been terrible. Of course, the quarterback, if that situation's resolved, that goes a long way. I'm still of the mind that you go pass rusher in one, and then defense or offense, build up the offense after that. But we'll see. I know we got a couple voicemails. You guys just want to save those to next week, or should we play one of the...
Well, I'm only aware of the one, and that one we could save for next week. Josh, did we have 2?
We had a late one come in. Text sent another
okay.
voicemail in. So this is I think 2 weeks in a row we've had text. Well, both times we've had voicemails, we've had text. So it's entirely up to you guys. If you want to, we can go ahead and play one of those and respond. I haven't listened to the texts.
Yeah, why don't you throw Tex's voicemail out there?
Okay. If you guys want to keep talking for a second, I'll get this.
Yeah.
Pulled.
Yeah. If you want to.
I don't know. Should we go ahead and tease what we've got going on next week, or do we want to risk?
Well, yeah, we can.
Scheduling might come up and it not happen.
Well, I think with the caveat that scheduling could always interfere. Next week we're expecting to have Ben Fennell, which if you're on Twitter, it's at the X and O's Life. He does a lot of all 22 breakdown, and this past week he was tweeting quite a bit about Mettenberger. But he's tweeted about the Titans just about every week. He tends to go through just a lot of the games and give a lot of thoughts about, these are the specific things that went wrong here and there. And I was thinking I should pull up his bio. I can't remember exactly what he does for a living.
He's with ESPN College Football. He does some
fantasy guru
fantasy stuff. Yeah. He has a pretty impressive resume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know Cyrus, who's been on the show before, speaks very highly of him as well. So we're hoping all of that works out and that he is able to come on, because we're really excited about asking him some questions. And obviously we'll have one more game of Mettenberger tape that we can talk to him about as well. So
yeah, and another game of possibly Bishop Sankey that we can talk to him about, because he's a player who I think doesn't get enough talk on this podcast, but part of it is because I'm just not impressed with him yet.
Yeah, I haven't been either, honestly. We got
so
text
I'm interested.
ready?
Yeah, text is ready. Ready, guys?
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Tex in a can. coming back at you. This week we're playing the dreaded Steelers, those bastards. Dirty, hard-hitting, semi-legal defense. They've tormented us for ages. They are historical evil incarnate. We have to hit them in the mouth, show them what we avenged the spirit of Titans and Oilers past. We've got much history with these guys. We will have to play these gold retard stuff. I know there's a calm and cool analysis of how we match up, but this is an emotional game for us longtime fans. Be a home game Monday night against a division rival for so many years, against an ingrate team that denied us at least one Super Bowl trophy. Anyway, Mrs. Tex and I are ready for the Titans win. Mettenberger's had enough time to establish timing with the wides. The whole line will hold up, and the D-line will too, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeehaw, and the Titans, let's go, man.
So
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw, yeah. So Tex is an old school Titans fan, and of course he remembers back the whole AFC Central days, and so these have been two, I guess exciting and potentially tough weeks for old Tex there, and so yeah, Tex is good. Tex is always listening, and we appreciate the voicemail.
I love hearing from Tex and Mrs. Tex as well. He said, I remember she was pretty upset back at the whatever game that was when he called in and left the last voicemail. But yeah, this actually works as a great transition because we hadn't got to talk much about the Monday Night Football game. Titans returning to prime time. Unfortunately, they're coming in at a 2-7 record. And like he said, going against the Steelers, who we've just had a pretty big rivalry with for many years, going back to those old days in the old divisions and conferences. But this is a game that the Steelers, they're coming off a loss. They were playing very well up to that point. Roethlisberger had just been, having insane numbers.
I think,
frankly.
Didn't he have like 6 touchdowns in consecutive games?
Yeah. First time that's happened in NFL history. But historically, especially in recent years, we've always played well against them for whatever reason. And again, kind of like last week against the Ravens, I don't know why, but I'm feeling like we might actually pull it off. Maybe just some Monday night magic. Keith Bullock used to be Mr. Monday Night. Maybe they can bottle up some of that magic and pull out a victory somehow. Mettenberger in prime time. Of course, being in the SEC, he's used to playing under the lights. So, I don't know. Am I crazy for feeling a little bit positive about it?
A little bit. I mean, what's the over under on Brown as far as reception yards? I mean, we're talking what?
400.
Yeah. So it could get ugly, but if we get 2 good Mettenberger quarters, who knows, man? We could do it, man. But I don't. Yeah,
I'm not saying I would ever predict them to win. I'm just saying I'm feeling slightly more positive than normal, which, for the way I've been the past few weeks, that's saying something. But
no, I don't blame you, because I think that, and this is based on nothing, right? But I think that with Mettenberger, I think we have a puncher's chance. What if this is the game he figures it out? I don't know. I never felt that way with Locker. He was pretty much the defense can step and play well. I think now you have this option of defense can step up and play well. The Steelers can come out and just lay an egg, or I think you can get good Mettenberger for 2-3 quarters, and then who knows what happens.
Well, they're going to be without Polamalu and also Shazier, or however you say the rookie linebacker's name. So their defense is taking a slight hit in that regard.
Yeah, I think that our defense is going to have maybe not a great game, but one of those games where we learned this last week, right? The only yard that really matters is that last yard before a touchdown. And we're going to have a defense that manages to make some plays right before touchdowns. Because I have a feeling the Steelers will be able to move the ball. But if you get some good turnovers, if you can stop them from scoring a touchdown, hold them to a field goal, some of those important things as they start getting closer and going down the field, if you can salvage points there at the end, that's what it's going to take. I don't think we can have a game where we get one sack, no turnovers, and keep it close. That worked against Baltimore. I mean, really, it was close on the field. The score got to 14 points eventually, and probably could have been even more if they wanted to right at the end. But yeah, I think the defense is going to have to make some plays this week.
And if I'm being one time all season, and our defense has played well enough in some games to win. I'd say that not totally buying into that either. Man, the more I look at this, I don't know. I mean, really think. I mean, this is not going to be a pretty game. I don't believe so. I believe this is likely a game that we lose by a couple touchdowns.
I'll tell you what's not going to be pretty is the fans. Because they're going to be largely in yellow and gold, or yellow and black.
Yeah, it sounds like. So I think I remember the last time the Steelers were in town, I asked a number of people about it. And the last time they were in Nashville, and people said, before the Titans came, there were a lot of Steeler fans. And so people always want to talk about, these out-of-towners coming in. But it's not that they're out-of-towners. It's that they're local people, and they get a chance to see the team they like.
Yeah. It's bad enough when the Titans actually have a solid record, but when it's 2-7, I can't imagine what it's going to be like.
And terrible at home.
Right. Yeah, for my prediction, I would never predict the Titans to win. I haven't predicted them to win for weeks. But if they did find some way to pull it off, I wouldn't be totally surprised. The biggest difference between this week and last week is Roethlisberger's a huge upgrade over Flacco. So like you were saying, Jamal, one sack and no turnovers just isn't going to cut it the way he's been playing lately.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that one way that I would explain what it sounds like you guys are also feeling, it's the way I feel as well, is that this team has not put it together for full games. But you've seen flashes from this offense under Mettenberger. You saw it under Jake, too, at times. I mean, there is talent. It's just putting it together. Mm-hmm. And so you got a new quarterback. You're hoping for an upward trajectory, right? So projecting that maybe they put it together for a full game, that could happen. And then you have a okay defense at least. Maybe they have a good game. Then you can start beating teams again. But, I mean, that a win here would take a projection of this offense has to play a full game.
Yeah, and I forgot we're probably going to be without Delaney Walker, so that lowers my expectations a little bit more. He's been by far the most productive receiver that we've had, most reliable. All right, well, this has been episode 88 of the Two-Tone Crew. Again, we hope to have that special interview next week, but in the meantime, Josh will tell you there are a number of different ways you can check out what we've got going on.
No, I'm not going to let you off that easy, John. I want to know score predictions, guys.
Oh.
Then I'll take us out.
Score predictions.
Score predictions.
We've not done this in a while. Well,
I used to cop out and do 2-0 all the time.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, I'll say that... Yeah, I know, right?
Okay.
Good idea, Josh. Okay, so I want to go in and I'm going to say 38 to 20. 38-24.
I'll
Who
say
wins?
With a lot of that 24 coming late.
Steelers, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'll say 28-17 Steelers.
All right.
So you guys are both predicting Steelers.
You're not going to.
That's going to make me look extremely stupid. As I have predicted, I think almost every game wrong so far this year. At some point, I'm going to go back and check because I'm pretty sure if I've got a game right, it's like
one game you predicted both, so you didn't lose that week.
I forgot about that. No, I'll go for the unlikely Titans win. And the only way it's going to happen, I think, is if this offense gets its act together a little bit. So I'm going to say the Titans score 30.
Oh,
Which
wow.
have they even done that this year? I don't think they have.
Yeah, I think they had like 29 one game maybe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So the Titans are going to double their points on the season and score 30 points. And I think then we hold the Steelers to 29.5 points.
Let's see.
Yeah.
We have not scored 30 all season.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, even more absurd then. Yep. So we'll go actually 30-25 Titans.
Biggest output of the year from the offense. I like it. Hope it happens.
So does Tex. Sounds like Tex thinks we're going to win this one.
Sounds like he's just fired up and hoping we win this one.
Roll
Fired up.
I hope we win. Okay, guys. So yeah, we are the official podcast of TitansReport.com. Go to TitansReport.com. Click on the forums. You can find all of us there. With a bunch of other people.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. The voicemail line is 615-900-0282. Call in like text. Leave a voicemail. We'll get you on the podcast. Mailbag, you can send us an email at mailbag@twotonecrew.com. Facebook.com/Titans Report. You can find us on Twitter at Titans Report. iTunes, search for the Two Tone Crew. Like, subscribe, whatever we do to E-rate. Yeah, that one.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for all your support, and thanks for sticking with this team throughout a 2-7 season. We'll talk to you again very soon.
So I've always thought instead of it being a bunch of other people on TitansReport.com, it's really just Scotty with a bunch of alt accounts, and he's just.
We are still live.
Oh, are we? Well, Scotty, here you go. I've always thought it's just Scotty. I can just see him though, can't you?
Yeah, in a room
He's
with
got
like 50
6
screens.
Yep.
Fantastic. And we're done. All right, guys. So that's what you get for being live, but you will not hear that on the podcast. So
That's right.
But you
yeah, I'll
know
cut that
Scotty's out there listening. He heard it all.
all right,
What's up,
guys.
Scotty?